Hey there riders, Journo Kris here today, and I thought I'd just give you a very quick look at the ergonomics and rider fit of the KLX230SM. This is the new Super Moto from Kawasaki here in Australia. We don't get the larger capacity 300SM, and this is very much a beginner-centric Super Moto, which is kind of reflected in the overall specifications, including a fairly restrained 230cc air-cooled single, but let's look at the ergonomics. 845mm seat height. That is quite tall when we're talking about beginner bikes. I've got a 32-inch inseam. I'm 180 centimeters. I actually can get both feet down flat in regular riding boots on this bike. So I would actually say that seat is a lot more manageable than perhaps the height would suggest. The suspension does sag a little bit when you jump on the bike, which certainly helps there. And the bike is nice and narrow. And then on top of that, you have to consider the fact this bike only weighs 135 kilos. It is exceptionally light, really, when we look at kind of where most of those 300 to 400cc bikes land on weight. Wide bars, easy to see through mirrors, but round mirrors aren't a personal favorite. Simple dash, but very easy to read. The only adjustability on this is in that rear preload. There are not adjustable levers. There are no adjustment in the fork, so limited adjustability. But certainly as a 70 to 80 probably kilo rider, plus my camera gear, I would say that the overall ride was pretty good. The rear was a little bit harsh, but you've got the preload adjustability there to play around with as something worth considering. Really quick little bit of background. A SuMo is basically a super motard. It's like an off-road styled machine with road wheels and tires and normally a suspension setup and brake setup to match on it. And that's certainly what this is. This is based on the KLX230S, which is a dual sport. So jumping on the bike, as you can see, it was quite a throw of the leg. Both feet down flat here. There's actually a little bit of extra room, you know. And certainly if you only need to get one foot down flat, that should be fairly easy because moving around on that seat is super easy. It's got like almost like an enduro style seat on it. Reach to the bars. The bars are quite close to me, I feel like, as a rider, and it's a very tight rider triangle between the grips, the pegs, and the seat. And I feel like those pegs are quite tall and a little bit further forward, perhaps, than I might have expected. It's just, there's something about it that just feels a little bit unusual to me, but you can see the rider triangle here. So it does give a commanding view down the road. You know, it's like very naked bike styled kind of machine. And yeah, it is what it is. That tank is a little bit lower. Certainly the weight is nicely centralized, nice and low. The bike is a very easy thing to handle, I would say, but I'm an experienced rider. And generally as a first rider, anything is going to feel heavy to start off with. It does only take 7.5 liters of fuel, so there's not like a heap of top heavy weight when you fill it up. And there is room for a pillion on the back, so that's something worth keeping in mind. But certainly it's not a, you know, super pillion friendly kind of machine. Rubber clad pegs, I didn't find any vibes at all through the bars, even though it's a single, at least not that I noticed in my time on the bike today. And it's a nicely contoured seat. So as I said, it's easy to move around on that seat and kind of take advantage of, you know, really kind of muscling the bike around. It's not that it takes a lot of muscle, but it's a rewarding way to ride this particular machine. The seat does have quite a bit of padding in it, so hopefully you can see that here. And that padding, I will say, if you're actively moving around on the bike, which obviously has you moving around on the seat and not just plonked in one spot, it was quite comfortable. If you're like commuting and you're just like sitting there like this, just, you know, long periods of time, I found I kind of just compacted that foam and it got a little bit uncomfortable. It's not terrible. If you're doing just shorter rides, you probably won't notice, but because I spent a good part of the 4 hours in the saddle, I certainly started to notice the comfort deteriorated. But I would say for like 30 minutes to an hour, pretty normal riding, you're probably going to be okay. And that's probably the benchmark that I think is a more fair one to judge this bike on. Obviously, nice kind of bodywork. It's all very slim and it's all very narrow, which again really helps. It's just the bars which are quite wide and the mirrors as well. So yeah, it's a nice, easy to jump on bike apart from that tall seat height, somewhat offset by the soft suspension, which kind of settles a fair bit with a rider on it, and also of course by the narrowness and the lightness of the bike. I guess I would say, you know, if you're not sure, go and jump on one of these, check one out in person, see about getting 1 foot down. As a new rider, I'd say that's a good kind of benchmark. 2 is ideal, but 1 as a minimum is a good place to start, unless you're super confident and you feel like, you know, maybe you have some dirt bike experience or something as a kid, so it's not so much of a concern for you. But yeah, I think this is a very kind of new rider-friendly bike apart from the seat height. Definitely one to consider, and because there's not really that many new Super Motos you can buy, particularly for beginners, this is one of the few options probably out there. I think it might be the only option here in Australia. So check one out. You can actually go and test ride this bike at MotoHUB in Castle Hill. It'll be there. So, and you can also of course just check the bike out if you just want to have a sit on it, you know, drop in and say hi to them and check out the bike. Because I think it looks pretty cool. To me, certainly the first time I saw it, I was like, wow, that's a cool machine. The one kind of sticking point for me is the price, but it is what it is there. And I guess we'll just see what happens in the future. Anyway, if you've got any questions about the ergonomics or the bike in general, I'll also have a full review up. Just let me know down below in the comments. I'll do my best to answer your questions. As always, stay safe out there. Thanks for watching and have a good one.